And a very good evening to everyone joining me on this News9 Facebook Live. I'm Pratibha and I'm going to give you an update on the coronavirus cases across the country. And when we talk about the number of cases, it's quite startling. The total number of cases, the daily fresh load of cases is increasing by the day. Over 94,000 cases have now been reported. Over the past 1 week or so, over 90,000 cases have been reported, and this is quite worrying because the numbers continue to rise. For the other countries as well, even though testing has been increased, the total number of cases has come under control for a while, but not in India, where the total number of coronavirus cases continue to be on the rise on almost on a daily basis. It continues to increase. But the one thing we could fall back on was that we were testing enough. We had amplified our testing as well. So as compared to what the situation was perhaps a month ago, our situation was much better because we were testing a lot more, but not now. Now there is a difference because the total number of testing has been decreased quite surprisingly. As of now, 8.8 lakh samples are being tested. This is a number that was tested, and this is on Friday. The data from Friday says 8.8 lakh samples have been tested. While the numbers are quite huge, keeping in mind the population of the country, it's quite less. Not just that, if you just compare it to what it was a few days ago, the numbers have dropped drastically. The number of tests being conducted has been reduced by over 2.5 lakh. So this is a massive number as opposed to over 10 lakh samples that were being tested almost on a daily basis. It has now come down considerably to just 8.8 lakh. So there is a difference of 2.5 lakh samples being tested on a daily basis. Despite that, the numbers are increasing. This is an indication that the positivity rate is only increasing across the country, that the cases continue to be on the rise. We are far from bringing the situation under control across the country. Now, we've been speaking of the recovery rate in the country. That has been good. But at the same time, if you're looking at all of these indicators as well as the statistics, it's also important to see what the positivity rate is. Now, how do we define the positivity rate? That is the number of samples that have tested positive, the percentage that has tested positive in all that have been tested. Say, for example, if 100 people have been tested, if over 8 people test positive, then the positivity rate is 8%. Ideally, as the testing continues and is amplified across countries, the positivity rate should be almost 1%, because that would be an indication that enough tests are being conducted. That is the case in some of the other countries as well. In South Korea, for instance, the positivity rate is 1%, which means for every 100 people that South Korea is testing, one person is testing positive. This means that enough tests are being conducted. The country is ensuring that it's looking at a larger picture to ensure that everybody is tested and it knows the exact picture of how many people are positive for coronavirus. As opposed to that, let me also give you another example. New York as well, one of the worst affected cities across the world. Here as well, the positivity rate was 1%, which means even though the numbers were high, the people in the city knew that they were testing enough. So, they were aware of what the situation actually is like. Now, looking at what the situation is like in India. As we told you, the samples have only been reduced. But if you look at when we were testing more than 10 lakh samples per day as well, our positivity rate was over 8%. This is an indication that out of the 100 people that we are testing, 8 people turn out to be positive, which means that our testing needs to be amplified much, much more. So ideally, even though we were testing about 10 lakh samples a day, India had to increase it further to ensure that the positivity rate only reduces. But that hasn't been the case, and it has only reduced. And now what we are seeing is that the positivity rate remains over 8%, and the number of samples that we are testing has only decreased. This is especially so in cases that are worst affected. To give you an update on the states as well, there are 5 states that have given out the highest number of single day spike in the total number of cases that have been reported as well. As worrying as it is, it also means that the situation has not come under control in these states. So On one hand, criticism that India has received is that the lockdown was not handled well enough, even though it was implemented quite strictly. And we bought time as well. The number of cases did not go down. Their trajectory did not go down as opposed to what it was in a few other countries. There might be various other factors. The one thing that India has been proud of is the number of tests that are being conducted. But given that we have a huge population, it needs to increase a lot more. In some ways, it means that we are not testing enough. So even though our numbers are now over 50 lakh, well beyond 50 lakh, in fact, even now we don't have the exact number of how many people have been affected. It still means that there are a lot many people who are affected by coronavirus, but we are not aware of it. Although some might argue that in terms of herd immunity, it might be good news because there are a lot many more people who are affected, even more than the numbers that have been recorded. So this means that the herd immunity in the country is getting much better. But as we've discussed again, that would again mean about 60 to 70% of the population being affected with coronavirus. And that's a situation that we would all like to avoid. So the crux of this talk being, of course, that we need to amplify the testing much more. As of now, the government has not given any reason as to why the testing has been decreased. But considering our positivity rate, the only way forward to control the crisis, even if it means in terms of numbers it's going to increase, it is to amplify testing. We hope that the government will give out a clarification on the same as to why enough tests are not being conducted, especially since on demand now tests can be conducted as well. As the testing increases, the numbers might increase, but we will have a better idea of where we stand. So that's all I have at the talk today. Thank you so much for joining me. Do let me know in the comments as well of what you think of the situation and how India has handled coronavirus as of now, until now, and what it should be doing in the future as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.